If you've been like many dealerships I know, you've probably been thinking about holding your own private auction, but you're worried about the issues of having wholesalers back in your dealership again. We've created an infographic that I'm going to explain in this video that kind of walks you through the 10 main steps of running your own dealer auction and, quite frankly, what to avoid. So here we go. Okay, the infographic can be found right here on Auction Simplified, right in the corner here. And you can see it's pretty straightforward. Let's start with the very first actions. The key here is to avoid the pain that dealers faced when inviting wholesalers back into their dealerships. So let's start off with the first action of the 10, and that is to use the velocity approach. Velocity approach basically means insisting that your cars are processed in your auction software within 2 days of arrival at your dealership. This is critical because it means that they're in front of the wholesalers who are potential buyers of your wholesale cars way early, before the auction is about to start. So don't wait until, a day or so before the auction's about to start. Give it time to percolate in the wholesaler arena. And how you do that is pretty simple. Stop separating wholesales from retails at the early stage of its processing. Use the same pipeline. Merchandise your wholesale cars before moving them into the wholesale row. Perform that full workup with photos and condition report. Now, I'm not saying do every kind of photo. Focus mostly on the flaws. You'll see more on that a little bit later. Use your existing tools. Don't try to reinvent the wheel here. If you're using vAuto or VIN Solutions or one of those services, use that again for managing your wholesale photographs and merchandising. So when I say focus on the flaws before, what I meant by that is when you're describing the car, remember you're not describing it for a retail buyer, you're describing it for a wholesaler. So focus on the issues. So when you're taking your photos, take 15 get-to-know-me photos, and then 4 or 5 photos focusing on the rust hole in the trunk or the issues that are on the car, the missing rear wiper motor or whatever it is. Now, this is the first time you're going to avoid a pitfall, and that is to have an inspection day. One of the issues we had with wholesalers in the past is they would show up at random times. That is avoided by having a specific date and time each week or every 2 weeks where you allow wholesalers in. Now let's avoid pitfall number 2, and that is bouncing checks. Now listen, we didn't kick customers out of our dealerships because they bounce checks. We just figured out a process to prevent bounce checks, and that's what I need you to do with the wholesalers as well. So at first, certified check, cash, or floor plan EFT only. No other payment method is accepted at first unless we have a long-term business relationship with that particular wholesaler. If we've known him for many years and you trust his check, you could put him on a preferred vendor list. Now let's look at one of the final pitfalls, and that is what we called backroom deals. This is where wholesalers would offer side things to your used car manager or wholesale manager, such as special trips or dinners or even money. And what happened is it just convoluted the whole wholesale process because some wholesalers were getting more cars than others, and that is really one of the main reasons why dealers got rid of wholesalers out of their dealership in the first place. Now, we avoid that by using auction software like Auction Simplified, because the way it works is the bids are completely private until the auction ends. So even you, as the owner of the dealership, or the buyers in your dealership, will not know who the wholesaler, buyer, or independent dealer is that's bidding on that car, which is very good because at the end it's a surprise and it just controls the situation. And also we have a real nice tracking system so you can see who's buying cars, who's not, what the patterns are. The next item is marketing your auction. One of the flaws dealers have had over the years is they start little bid sales for themselves and they really don't get anybody to come. So we have a whole system that we teach that will show you how to get wholesalers to your auction, including the wholesalers we already have in our network. It's always a great idea to merchandise it yourself. Get your BDC involved, get postcards made up inviting people to your auction, and even have something cool like maybe food on your viewing days to attract them to look at your cars. But we have a lot more on this. This could be a subject all in itself, and if you call us, we'll go through more in the details of how to get people to come to your auction. The next item is staffing appropriately. Staffing appropriately basically means make sure you have a billing clerk or two on hand, because you may be facing, pretty serious billing situation when you sell 35 cars at one of your auctions. So what some dealers do is they will make sure they staff the billing clerks for the end of auction to make sure it gets going, and others will, especially with dealer groups, bring some of your billing clerks in from other stores for the end of auction, just to kind of blast out those final wholesales. You also want to make sure there's a lot attendant available during the viewing period and the inspection period, because you want keys available and things like that. And you don't really need that to be your sales manager. You need to have somebody that you can basically assign tasks to, because the sales manager's job during the event, during the viewing period, is to be that love bomber, the person that's, finding the wholesalers and glad handing them and telling them how great they are. That's what the used car manager's job is during the sale, and pointing out hot cars that just came in and so forth. Now, a couple of tips before I finish. First tip is offering bid assurance to your wholesalers helps them feel comfortable about buying from you again. Bid assurance basically means that if you miss something on your condition report, you're willing to not hold their feet to the fire and have them make them take that car. An example, recently we had a dealer that tried to sell a car and realized afterwards that somebody had bypassed the turbocharger in the car. Are you going to hold the guy to the fire on that? No. Instead, what they said is, I'm not going to make you take it. We'll just run it back for auction this time. Put that on the condition report. Obviously, to increase your attendance, one of the things that always works is food. If you want people to come to your events, have some food, and don't be afraid to have events at Christmas and other times of year where you're inviting people in. Because let's face it, if they come to your little party and you run your auction right after, you've got quite a captive audience. The last thing I want to say on tips is treat your wholesalers with respect, and they'll keep coming back. What I really found out pretty quickly is that wholesalers are a very strong part of what makes our business successful. Welcome them in, treat them with respect, and they will buy cars from you and pay, respectable amounts of money. So if we do all of this, what can we expect? Well, you can expect a really decent sell rate. There's one dealership in Philadelphia we know that runs a bid sale every single week, 12 years now or 13 years, and they have about a 95% sell rate. The dealer group I worked for had anywhere from 89% sell rate at their auction. And the first time we ran an online auction using our software, we were able to get a 65% sell rate, which is pretty good, considering that the full-size auctions were sell rates in the 45 to 50%. Possible savings that you can see from running your own auction is $385, and some of that comes from auction fees, some comes from shipping, some comes from the cost of a manager being off-site, your liability of having people driving cars on dealer plates, the time it takes to get your car sold with waiting for auction, and now, of course, the new gassing fee that we're experiencing at some of the auctions. So, an example, a dealership wholesaling 10 cars a week at off-site auctions could save $220,000 per year if they ran their own private auction, assuming that auction was successful. And that is what Auction Simplified does, and what Dealer Simplified, the company, will do for you. We will help you start your own auction from start to finish, and we'll do it for free. This is something I want you to be real clear on. We do not charge auction seller fees or software fees for our auction platform. We only make income from the buyer's fees, and the buyer's fees are really small, which attracts buyers to your auction. So again, this is your auction, you run it, it's your operation, we provide terrific software for you, and most importantly, we'll teach you how to run an auction. So call us at 877-877-4511 or go to dealersimplified.com and read more. Have a wonderful day. Thank you very much.